Have you ever felt that? That kind of subtle growing unease, that feeling that something's off.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's a dissonance between what the news often tells us
Yeah.
and maybe what your gut is saying,
Huh.
or just the sheer volume of global headlines.
Yeah. Like something big is happening, but it doesn't fit the old patterns.
Exactly. It feels like a world war might be unfolding, but it looks totally unlike anything in the history books.
Mm.
There's no sudden big event like a Pearl Harbor, no massive Normandy invasion.
Right.
Just this persistent, unsettling sense that something really profound is shifting, kind of right under the surface.
And that feeling, that sense of a profoundly shifting reality, is exactly what we want to dig into today in this deep dive.
Okay.
What's really provocative here is the central idea from Stéphane Baudin's LinkedIn article, The Invisible Global War, AI, Proxies, and Reset.
Right.
And the core idea, it's pretty stark, is that World War III isn't just on the horizon, it's actually already here.
Wow. Okay. And what really jumps out, I think, is the twist. This isn't World War II again.
Not at all.
We're not talking grand declarations, traditional invasions, that kind of thing. So our mission today really is to explore that assertion. Why might this war be so hard to see? How is it actually being fought? And, what are the massive implications for what the article calls a global reset?
So think of this as your essential guide, really, to try and understand an urgent, evolving geopolitical reality. We'll distill it for you.
Okay, let's really dig into this. Where do we start?
Well, maybe the most fundamental shift the analysis points to is that war hasn't vanished. It's just been, well, rebranded.
Rebranded. How so?
Think about it. If we saw, say, Russia invade France tomorrow, we'd instantly call that a global conflict, right?
Yeah.
No question.
Absolutely. Alarm bells everywhere.
But because the actual fighting is happening in specific places, maybe through proxies, and the language used is sanitized, terms like special military operation or limited intervention, strategic response.
Right, those phrases we hear all the time.
Exactly. Because of that language, the alarm bells don't quite ring the same way for the public. It's a clever, almost insidious reframing, wouldn't you say?
It really is. And what's striking is how the article then paints this pretty stark picture of what it considers current global conflict. It gives examples.
Like what?
Well, you have the Russia-Ukraine situation, obviously.
Oh.
The article calls it a grinding war, pulling NATO deeper into direct confrontation.
Okay.
Then there's the escalating tension between Israel and Iran that's marked by, U.S. airstrikes, global unrest, and regional fallout.
Yeah, that's definitely been heating up.
And we can't ignore China-Taiwan. The article mentions the Atlantic Council, which is a pretty well-known nonpartisan foreign policy think tank, assessing a 65% likelihood of war by 2034. That makes it a serious flashpoint.
65%, that's high. And it's not just external conflicts, right? The analysis also points inward towards the U.S. itself.
Also,
It describes the U.S. as destabilizing internally, while at the same time weaponizing its global alliances in what could easily be called strategic encirclement.
strategic encirclement. Okay.
And when you connect all these dots and then you add in the statistic that over 59 countries have entered conflict since 2023, which is apparently the most since World War II,
Wow.
it really forces you to reconsider things. So for you, the listener, what does all this mean for our traditional understanding of war? It's clearly not the textbook definition we learned, is it?
No, it definitely isn't. That's a crucial distinction. But what really struck me here is how this war is being fought. It's with code, not cannons, as the source puts it.
Right, the digital battlefield.
Yeah, we're talking about a landscape where battles aren't necessarily waged by battalions anymore, but by bandwidth and bots.
Bandwidth and bots, yeah. And military experts, people like Annie Jacobson or former CIA officer Andrew Bustamante, they describe this environment as a proxy-infused, AI-amplified, disinformation-saturated global battlefield.
That's quite a mouthful, but it paints a picture.
It really does. It's a completely different kind of front line, isn't it?
Totally.
And think about this. What used to take entire armies to achieve things like destabilization, division, demoralization, that now takes, what, a server farm? A meme? A deepfake?
It's incredible, the speed and scale.
It is. Think about how AI-driven algorithms can, personalize misinformation. They can create these bespoke realities for individuals. Or how deepfakes can instantly sow distrust in leaders or institutions. The impact is almost immediate and global.
Yeah.
It's genuinely chilling to consider that quote from the article, "We are one AI-generated video away from nuclear escalation."
Oof. That's That's a profound thought to just sit with for a moment.
It really is.
So the argument here essentially is that the risk isn't so much about being invaded by tanks and troops in the traditional sense anymore.
Hmm.
Instead, we are, and I'm quoting again, already being manipulated en masse in real time across every platform and ideology.
Right. And because it doesn't look like the wars of the past, maybe we tend to dismiss it or at least fail to recognize its true impact.
Yeah, we don't see the connections sometimes.
Which brings us neatly to the next critical aspect mentioned: proxy wars. These are the new front lines, according to this analysis.
Okay, so using other groups or nations to fight battles.
Exactly. And look at the examples given. Ukraine, for instance, is explicitly funded, trained, and armed by the West. That's not really disputed.
Yeah.
Israel receives U.S. intelligence and weapons in its fight against Iran's influence. Again, widely reported.
Mhm.
And Taiwan is actively preparing for a potential Chinese invasion, and it's doing that with U.S. and Japanese support.
So these seemingly separate, localized conflicts?
They're actually integral parts of a much larger global contest. It's fascinating in a grim way.
Yeah. The article summarizes it as the new wartime model. Outsourced battles for global supremacy.
Outsourced battles, that's a stark way to put it.
It is. And the uncomfortable truth the article lays out is, quote, it's just someone else's children dying in someone else's streets, so we can pretend peace still exists.
Wow. Yeah.
It's a way to keep the conflict at arm's length. For some, maybe. Even while its effects ripple outwards and impact everyone, maybe just digitally for now, but still impacting them.
Okay, so moving to an even more challenging claim, perhaps the most provocative one.
Okay.
The article suggests that what looks like collapse or feels like systems breaking down, well, it isn't just happening randomly, it's actually being managed.
Managed collapse. What does that mean?
The argument presented is that this ongoing sort of low-grade, simmering global conflict is being used strategically to exhaust outdated systems.
Outdated system
Like old weapons stockpiles, old alliances, even old economic models.
Huh. So it's like a clearing out process.
Kind of. The article points out how military stockpiles are being emptied. You see that in Ukraine, for example, then they're reordered, and crucially replaced with new systems, specifically AI-powered autonomous systems.
Ah. Okay, so it's not just getting rid of the old, it's actively bringing in the new tech-driven stuff.
Precisely. And the stated objective, according to the source for all of this, a technological and geopolitical reset by 2030.
A reset by 2030. That's not far away. What does that actually mean for our everyday lives, according to this view?
Well, this definitely raises some big questions about the future, right? The article projects several potential outcomes of this reset.
Such as?
Things like civil liberties are traded for security. We hear echoes of that already sometimes. Also, AI governs surveillance, defense, and narrative, more AI control, and big economic models shift from global to bloc-based.
Okay, like you mentioned earlier, the BRICS plus nations versus, say, NATO and the EU.
Exactly, competing economic blocs rather than one integrated global system. And all this happens while, quote, the population, distracted and divided, accepts it all.
That's a pretty bleak outlook on the population's role.
It is. But the article is careful to frame this as analysis of a perceived strategy, not as, like, a hidden conspiracy. It's presenting an observation of what it sees as an unfolding plan.
Right, an interpretation of events. And maybe the most unsettling insight from all this analysis is that the real weapon, it isn't a bomb or a bullet.
What is it then?
It's ignorance.
Ignorance. How so?
Remember that Andrew Bustamante quote, the former CIA officer? The CIA doesn't create ignorance. We find it and then use it.
Ah, right. That's a powerful statement, isn't it, about the human mind itself being a kind of battlefield.
Exactly.
It absolutely is. And what's truly fascinating, or maybe disturbing, is thinking about how this ignorance is fostered, maybe even cultivated, in our daily lives.
Yeah, how does that happen?
Well, the article points to things like TikTok algorithms feeding us manipulated versions of truth, or these fractured news cycles that seem to prioritize feelings over facts sometimes.
Right, echo chambers and filter bubbles.
We end up living in this kind of fog of war, as the source calls it. But it's not on a physical battlefield, it's in our minds, it's in our social media feeds.
That really resonates.
Yeah.
So how does this connect with your daily experience of information? It's a question we should probably all be asking ourselves constantly.
A critical question.
So, okay, to sort of bring this all together then, the deep dive concludes with a pretty urgent call to action. It's basically, wake up, before the reset is complete.
Right. The core message couldn't be much clearer, could it? It's saying, we are already in a global war. It will escalate.
Hmm.
And we are not prepared. Politically, economically, emotionally.
That's stark.
And the time frame given is equally stark. We have, quoting here, till 2029-30 at best to get our act together.
Get our act together. How? What does it suggest?
Well, it implores us, really, to ask the hard questions,
Yeah.
you know? To push for actual diplomacy, to think about ethical innovation, especially with AI. And ultimately, the goal is to protect what remains of truth and humanity. Because that window, the article warns, is closing fast.
Okay, so let's recap our deep dive today. We've explored this argument that global conflict has fundamentally transformed,
Yeah, it's become this kind of invisible, technologically driven proxy war.
where information is the main weapon, and maybe our own ignorance or lack of awareness is the greatest vulnerability.
It's definitely a reality check. It kind of compels us to really think about the implications of this new geopolitical landscape, doesn't it?
It does.
It encourages us to maybe dig deeper into how we even define diplomacy now, in a world where digital borders might matter more than physical ones.
And what ethical innovation really looks like when technology is so deeply embedded in conflict.
Exactly.
So we'll leave you with this final thought to consider. If, as the source argues, the real weapon is ignorance, and this window is closing, for us to protect what remains of truth and humanity, what specific actions, big or small, can you actually take to cultivate more awareness and critical thinking in your own life, maybe in your community?
That's a question worth mulling over, I think, long after this deep dive ends.